good on YouTube as well.
Thank you so much.
All right, does everybody hear me? Hopefully you can't see me, but you can hear me. They on there?
They're there.
All right. We're going to call the meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 2, the Budget Review Subcommittee on Economic Development, Tourism, and Environmental Protection. The new protocols for this, I'm sure everybody knows these by now. Remote access will be allowed to all meetings for the interim. Members who were provided information prior to the meeting, but there'll be no materials handed out here. They'll be up there. So, and when we do roll call here in just a second, I guess they'll unmute their. I tried this other day. It didn't work for me. So yeah, I guess you unmute your phone or computer and answer here or whatever. Let's, Mr. Secretary or Ms. Secretary, call the roll.
Senator Clark, Senator Kerr, Senator McGarvey, Senator Wise,
Present.
Representative Branham Clark, Representative Hale,
Present.
Representative Maddox, Representative Palumbo. Okay. Representative Rowland. Thought I saw him on here. Representative Schmore. Representative Yates. Senator Humphreys. Senator McDaniel. Representative Reed. Representative Rudy. Representative Weber. Senator Girdler.
Present.
Representative Beckler.
Here remotely.
All right, got one remote. Can I entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes?
So moved.
All right, we got approval of the minutes. This morning, we're going to hear from a young lady from Lexington, Patricia Knight, and then my own tourism director in Pulaski County, what used to be Michelle Spencer. If you've never met Michelle's mother, she's precious, Maraca. She comes in my office and she's German or Italian?
It's Dutch.
Dutch. Well, she's something that I ain't. But anyway, I love to hear her speak, so she's precious. We're going to start off with Miss Knight. I asked her if her name was Day before she became Knight, but it wasn't. So, but it'd been a good hyphen to have Patricia Day Knight. Anyway, go ahead, Patricia. Introduce yourself, and you're welcome to start anytime.
I am Patricia Knight. I'm the VP of Finance and Operations for Visit Lex in Lexington, Kentucky. So we are the Convention and Visitors Bureau for the second largest city in the state. I will start by giving you just a brief overview of some of the statistics for the state, and then we will focus and narrow down into just the Lexington-centric pieces. Each year, the state of Kentucky welcomes approximately 71 million visitors, and they spend $11.2 billion in this state. And that generates $787 million worth of taxes. I am a CFO, so I will talk about a lot of numbers, so just bear with me. In May, the state budget director reported that to the consensus forecasting group that 12% of all of the state tax revenue generated comes from the hospitality and tourism industry. So we do make quite a significant impact. We also employ 95,000 employees within the industry. That's 4.4% of all the jobs in Kentucky. It touches every single county, and it ranges every single skill set and every single demographic that could be out there. They're not just jobs at high level, they are all sorts of entry-level jobs with lots of opportunities for everyone. So the financial health of Kentucky is very dependent upon the health of the hospitality and tourism industry. In Lexington, we're no different. We have $1.2 billion in spending a year from visitors, and we have 30,000 hospitality jobs just in Lexington, and that's 12% of the jobs available in Lexington. Right now, unfortunately, about 75% of our hospitality employees are either furloughed, laid off, or their positions have been eliminated. COVID-19 had a devastating impact on our industry. It hit us immediately with the closures and the requirements to meet the healthy requirements of the state. We were forced to close our doors, and without our doors being open, we can't keep our employees. The sooner we get these men and women back to work, we will begin our recovery process, but it's not going to be easy, and it's going to take a very long time. At Visit Lex, we are 99% funded from the transient room tax. With hotels nearly closed, we have no transient room tax. So this has had a devastating impact on our office. We were, before the pandemic, 4.4% ahead of our budget, and I was projecting $8.1 million as our revenue for this year. That would have been the highest amount of transient room tax ever collected in Lexington. That transient room tax is made up of two components: occupancy, so the number of people sleeping in a hotel room, and the average daily rate, which is the rate you pay to sleep in that room. So that's how the transient room tax is calculated. Historically, we range from 65 to 70% occupancy during the months of the pandemic so far. So for between March and June, we would have had a 65 to 70% transient room tax. With April, of course, with Keeneland being in meet, would have been our highest month, where we would have had about a 92% occupancy rate. Our occupancy rate for the month of April was 16.1%. Our average daily rate for those months is usually $112, with April being the most at about $120. This April, our average daily rate was $64. So it's devastated our office. Between the months of March and June, we lost $2.4 million in transient room tax. We are a meetings and conventions town, being the second largest city in the state. We have a convention center that's currently under reconstruction, so we have a huge project there. We have had 151 groups cancel their meetings in Lexington alone, and that's just the groups that the Convention and Visitors Bureau was involved with. That does not account for any of the groups that book directly with a single property hotel. That was 62,000 room nights within our city limits, and that equaled $23.5 million of economic impact that will not come to Lexington. We continue to have groups cancel. They're canceling now through December, and we anticipate that to happen through the first quarter of next year and possibly into the second quarter. What that means to us is that's $60 million in just hotel room revenue. That's not ancillary spending, so that's no food and beverage, that's no attractions, that's no stopping at the gas station, shopping at the mall, or any of the other items. That was $2.4 million to Visit Lex in transient room tax. That's also $2.4 million to the Lexington Center Corporation to pay down the bonds that were used to fund the project to build the Lexington Center. That's also another $300,000 in transient room tax that's due to the state of Kentucky to repay the bonds that were issued for the convention center. It's $600,000 in state transient room tax that goes partially to the Department of Travel and Tourism and then funnels back to some of the CVBs for specific projects involved with the state. It's $3.9 million in sales tax. So that's a total of just transient room tax and sales tax of $9.6 million during a 4-month period. It's devastating. Unfortunately, CVBs are quasi-governmental entities in Kentucky, And that means we were ineligible for every single benefit in the CARES packages to date. It meant that we at Visit Lex had to immediately react. We reduced our spending by $1.24 million in critical and mission-centric activities. That included advertising, our marketing programs, our sales efforts, and our staff. We laid off 9 part-time staff immediately and indefinitely. Our full-time staff, and we have 18 full-time staff, were furloughed 60%. So down to 15 hours a week is what our staff works. That was $390,000 of salaries and benefits that we eliminated during a very short period of time from our budget. That also impacted the Kentucky retirement system. We're a part of the Kentucky retirement system, so we will not be paying $71,000 to the Kentucky retirement system that we would have paid on the wages that we would have paid to our staff during this period of time. Our employees would have paid $10,000 in state withholding that's not going to be paid, and $8,000 to the Lexington-Fayette County government and Fayette County Public Schools that won't be coming back to them. Current travel environment, specifically for Lexington, because we are a meetings and conventions town, so we don't have high traveler confidence right now. And the confidence that is available is very limited and regional. You know you're not willing to go get on a plane and go to Florida right now. Everyone else feels that same way. So we're seeing that experience happen with us. So everyone's staying close. They want to go outside, so that's good for some destinations, but Lexington has limited outdoor activities. We have great ones, but they are limited. And our locals are a little bit uncomfortable about welcoming a lot of visitors and guests from out of town into our city. From a meeting planner perspective, they're not confident. They're not comfortable. They can't even make the math work on this. If you can't put more than 50 people in a room, you can't host a conference and charge a registration fee to make it make financial sense. They can't host silent auctions and some of the other fundraisers that help them offset some of the cost of it. From the hotel's perspective, if you can't have 2 people at a 6-foot table, then we've significantly impacted the number of people that can even attend an event. So we do see that there's going to be a lot of changes coming to meetings, and it's going to have a significant long-term impact for us in Lexington. 2021, we're anticipating still that this is going to continue for a very long time. Our recovery path in Lexington will probably be 2 to 3, maybe even longer years. We are assuming a 20% occupancy reduction for 2021. That means $3 million additional dollars for fiscal year 2021 coming out of our budget. There's a lot of assumptions we're making. We don't have pandemic history to go back and look upon to tell us how to react to this, what to forecast, what to do. So we are assuming that there will be spectators at Keeneland, at the Breeders' Cup, at UK football, because those are revenue drivers for us. And if the visitor is taken out of the experience, we're limited with what revenue we can have. We will keep our part-time people laid off. We do plan to bring our full-time people back August 1st. Of course, that is contingent upon information that we receive. We have eliminated 2 full-time positions with our staff. There are no merit increases, no incentives, there's no additional anything. We're looking at additional benefit reductions. We've also been forced to continue to reduce our mission-centric efforts. So we have reduced our advertising budget by over $500,000. We've reduced our sales budget by almost $150,000. We've reduced printing. There's no reason to print stuff if we can't distribute it or people aren't coming to get it. We've reduced our PR cost, our development programs, and our promotional efforts. So every single line of our budget has been impacted. Our industry was disproportionately impacted to save everyone's health. We're key to the recovery efforts. We know how to market and promote our cities and our state. Our restaurants and bars can reopen, but they can't market and promote themselves. And if no one comes to their restaurants or their bars or their attractions, there's no one to generate more money to bring back to this state. We need help and we need support. And we've been working with our congressional leadership in Washington to try and help that we get included in the next round of CARES package benefits. We are critical to the needs of our communities. We also would like to ask that you guys be supportive of the coronavirus relief funds that have been allocated to the state of Kentucky. Kentucky received almost $1.6 billion in relief funds. And it does cover the secondary effects of COVID-19, such as economic devastation and turmoil. The U.S. Department of Treasury just recently issued a frequently asked questions document that confirms that CVBs are eligible recipients of those. The state of North Carolina, Mississippi, and Louisiana have recently allocated approximately $15 million each for just tourism efforts for their state. And, tourism is a big bang for your buck. In the state of Kentucky, for every dollar invested in tourism, $151 in visitor spending is generated. That's the number one return on investment of anything we ask. We ask for your support, your help, anything that you can do to help us as an industry and as CVBs who don't have additional funding sources coming into them and who had no relief efforts. We're 95,000 employees spread across this state that can help us get back to recovery.
Thank you, Ms. Knight.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is take questions from this room, and then we'll take questions from remotely, if you're willing to stay and answer some questions. Being from Pulaski County and from where Michelle is from, we see a lot of tourism as far as the lake is concerned. And my son moved to Nashville or in that area 4 or 5 years ago, and he's invested in some Airbnbs. And the other day he called me and said since they shut down the bars, people canceled their Airbnbs, which, I hadn't really thought that much about. And in the Lexington area yesterday, I went with my wife and my grandson to Lexington. Had no problems finding places to park. Now, my wife didn't find too many clothes because the stores are not restocking. But anyway, and that you don't really think about it until you go there, and didn't have to wait long in the restaurant. But they only had a couple of waitresses or waiters, and so this ripple effect is. It scares me to death, to be honest with you, and especially, I'm in the insurance business, and we all are part of the service end of it. And if we don't have this, it's going to have a long-term effect for us. So, the state tournament, I go to it every year. You all had already prepared and did all this stuff. And then it cancels a week before, during the girls' state tournament.
That's correct.
And then the boys' state tournament, which is a big draw, I'm assuming. I was surprised to hear that Keeneland is the biggest draw, which is, they're opening up today, but
No spectators.
no spectators. It's like our retail stores opening up and said the employees can come, but the people can't come and buy. So, at any rate, are there any questions here? Yes.
Ms. Knight, let me slide over here a second. A few minutes ago, if I understood correctly, you said that over the next 8 months, because you were talking about getting into the first of 2021, that hotels in Lexington would lose approximately $60 million?
We've lost $60 million between March and June 30th.
Okay, that's just of this year.
Of this
Okay.
year. For next year, with $3 million of our revenues projected to be down, that's $75 million in hotel room revenue. Not ancillary revenue, but just the room revenue.
Okay. And I think you've made a pretty good case, and I think we all realize this, that, actions have consequences. So my question to you is, are there hotels in the Lexington area that will potentially close their locations there because you indicated that conferences and such were closing at least through December now. So are we looking at possible hotels in the Lexington area that are going to be closing their doors and won't reopen?
That is a possibility. We had two that closed full-time during the pandemic, locked their doors up and shut. The Omni in Louisville also shut down directly across the street from the Kick Center. Right now, all of our properties are currently open. The ones that are doing the best are interstate hotels that are near the interstates and those that are extended stay properties. Our meetings and conventions hotels, those with the space that host events, they will continue to struggle. And there is a very real likelihood that several of them will not be able to mathematically make it work and will have to shut their doors.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, one more question, if you don't mind. We all know that, as I said, we know that the shutdowns were going to have serious economic effects. So can you give me and you can estimate this, what are we looking at in terms of recovery on this? Are we looking at 3 years? Because it's not going to happen in a year, we know that. So are we looking at 3 years, 5 years, 10 years before we can get tourism and folks coming not only to Lexington, but to Pulaski County and to Bullitt County and to Hardin County and Nelson County, those areas that surround me? What are we looking at in terms of a recovery time on this?
We're looking at a minimum of 2.5 to 3 years, and a lot of that is contingent upon how we react locally to it. Typically, our Lexington hotels don't compete with each other at a significant level. But now we're in an environment where they're competing with each other. So you're going to come to Lexington. You could have gotten a $89 room rate, but the guy across the street, he's struggling too, so he's going to undercut me, and then I'm going to try to undercut him back. So if we get into a rate war with ourselves, the recovery period will be extended and could extend beyond even the 3 years.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Senator Wise?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony. It was fascinating. The other day I was listening and it was talking about hotel recovery and about bailouts. And the discussion was, are hotels a necessity or are they a luxury? And I look at that because I recently traveled with my family. We were out of state. And the hotel there did it very well. We walked in the lobby. They had rules and regulations we had to follow. I had breakfast to go in the morning by the bags. So is that in terms of individual hotels need to make this decision on how best to handle their hotels? Or do you think it should be a local city ordinance that has a mandate of what it should look like for each city? Thank you.
There is Healthy at Work guidelines and guidance for the hotel industry specific. The American Hotel and Lodging Association has also published a lot of standards associated with that. Being that the Visit Lex has a very vested interest in how these hotels interact with their guests, especially during a global pandemic, we have been very engaged with them as well to reach out and say, what are your standards? Because until we can drive consumer confidence that we are a safe city, they're not going to want to even come back at all. So we have to put the word out that they are doing what they need. And the hotels are very invested in this. The last thing they want is social media saying that they are not a clean hotel or that I contracted COVID-19 from sleeping at this hotel property. The Healthy at Work guidelines are a 48-hour turn on our hotel rooms. So essentially, that's removing 1/3 of the inventory from any given hotel. That if when you check out, it has to stay cold for 48 hours before a maid can come in, you're really talking about the change in business model of this hotel. A lot of our properties are select service properties, which means they're smaller, limited hotels. They're about an 88 to 120 room property. So you've just removed 1/3 of my hotel rooms. The margins are really going to be thin in the hotel industry for a prolonged period of time. Right now, a lot of the hotel staff, these hotels, the larger ones, employ hundreds of individuals. There might be 20 people working at that hotel. And your job is to do what needs to be done within that hotel. So they, are taking their cleaning standards and their protocols very serious.
Finished, Brother Max? All right. Representative Branham Clark.
Thank you. And my question kind of bounces off of that one, and you've answered it somewhat. I've got a varying perspective on the situation we're in right now. I've been a small business owner. I've also been a director of development for local Paramount Arts Center Theater. So, I have a passion for tourism and entertainment. And like you, I worked on economic impact reports. I know what the tourism does, even in my community in Boyd. At the same time, currently, I'm a vacation rentals owner, and I own property in Myrtle Beach. So we're well aware of what's going on right there. And I've experienced this crisis firsthand. I've watched my spring and summer rentals bottom out. At the same time, it's now currently a hot spot. And because of people that are visiting that area, my community has jumped from 38 positive COVID cases to 75 in 2 weeks and growing. So we've got to strike that balance on returning to tourism and entertainment while we still acknowledge and provide for public safety. Because at the end of the day, my primary focus is I'm a grandmother, and I've canceled my own vacation to my own rental property in Myrtle Beach because I don't feel completely secure to take my grandchildren there at this time. So my question being, we do need this industry. I actually also have a son who's graduating from UK in the hospitality and tourism industry, so we discuss it a lot. But what are your recommendations? What are your thoughts? We need the input from the individuals who are in this industry on the front lines. How do we return to business, but do it in a way that ensures peace of mind for grandmothers like me that want to bring their families to our town? We have to know that we're doing it and ensuring that they're going to remain healthy.
Yes. Our marketing efforts will be key in that, and our locals will be a key in that. Because if our locals feel safe doing it, and they say they're safe doing it, they can help spread that word with it. In this environment, we don't buy print ads at CVBs anymore. Everything is digital and social, so we can react very quickly. We can also pull back that spending very quickly if we're not getting those revenue streams. But we need a lot of that local involvement, engagement, and our locals telling people to come visit us, that it is safe, that I can go out and do this.
That's my question, though. What are we doing? What are the requirements? What are we mandating that ensures people that safety is our priority and that we're adhering to guidelines?
Is going to those hotels and saying, this is what our standards are, and being upfront and honest about that. When you check in, you're going to see that the team is in masks. We expect you to wear a mask within the site. There's hand sanitizer everywhere you can move. The social distancing signage, not having these functions where that it's getting released out into the media where we have a lot of people who aren't practicing these good standards that create that perception in the consumer that that's not a safe place. I mean, we've all seen those social media posts in the news. You know instantaneously that's not where you want to go. We want the opposite of that. We want to show our visitors that we are safe, that it's okay to come here, and that you brought your grandchild here. And if you're going to bring your grandchild here, then you're okay that if they bring their grandchild here. We have to have to rebuild that consumer confidence. And it's going to take all of us to do that. The hotel can do their part, but until we do our part of advertising, getting out there, and our locals step in and say, right, we want you to come back too. Right now that is a struggle because the locals are kind of on the fence about it because we don't want these extra people coming into our community because they went into Myrtle Beach and we see what's happening there. Right. So we have to have that good balance of making sure that we're following up with the hotels and they're doing the right things and we can honestly say that to them because trust is a big part of this equation.
Right. And to finish, I hear you saying that we all need to be in the same boat, practicing the same recommended standards to remain healthy in business and healthy at home. So
when you're out, wear your mask because it encourages other people to wear their mask.
Thank you, and I look forward to visiting Lexington.
Please stay in a hotel.
I will. My children always try to get me to stay with them, but I think I would enjoy staying in the hotel. So,
Unfortunately, the rates are in your advantage at this point.
thank you.
Representative Maddox?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for all of the information that you've given us. It's very informative, but I just have one question. Did I understand you correctly that you said that it's 48 hours that a room has to remain vacant before a maid can come in? Is that correct?
That is the standard, that they're wanting a 48-hour hold.
Yeah, and that just kind of shocks me to a certain extent because I understand the logic behind it, but at the same time, that kind of seems unequally applied whenever we're looking at other industries and other areas where folks congregate, such as public transportation or, even in terms of shopping and things of that nature where folks are in and out and a quick turnaround, whereas 48 hours before the room can even be cleaned, again, that kind of seems like it's a little bit unfair. It disadvantages you because, again, if we were to see a resurgence in tourism, then of course having a room unoccupied for that length of time is going to be problematic in terms of your revenue. So I just kind of wanted to draw that. Seems unusual. Thank you.
Yeah, we feel like we've been disproportionately positioned from the beginning of this virus, closing our bars, our restaurants, and our hotel occupancy dropping to nothing. So but we're willing to make the sacrifices that the public needs to get us back where we need to go. And, our rooms are going to be vacant if no one comes. So as long as we can assure people they're clean when you come, maybe we can get more extended stays, longer stays, those type of things. A lot of our properties are using the wand sanitizers that, kill on contact, all of those. So they're doing every safety protocol they can to try and get to a point where we can have some additional restrictions eliminated and pulled back a little so we can increase our capacity. Right now, honestly, the 48-hour hold isn't really a problem, unfortunately. But we would love to be in a position where that we need more capacity. And we will see it. It's just going to be a very long time before we see it in Lexington.
Any other questions in the room? Do we have any online? All right. You did very good. I have one quick question. The airport, the hotels around it, I'm assuming that they are not doing any good at all either.
Our airlift has dropped significantly. We are seeing some small increases in it. We've lost several of our direct flights over the last couple of months. There's just the demand isn't there. Consumer confidence isn't great for the airline industry right now, and they're having to make a lot of decisions on their own. But no, properties that aren't along the interstate and aren't extended stay aren't doing well.
I know when I flew a little bit, I would fly up there to just walk across, or they'd take you across to Keeneland. Man alive, the General Aviation Airport was full. And yes, go ahead.
That was my question
Oh.
to you. I want to piggyback on that you're saying.
Representative Brown Clark has another question.
Sorry, I was just piggybacking off of that comment because it occurred to me, sorry, I don't have my microphone on. It occurred to me that we also have hospitality industry within those airports that are seeing a significant drop. While you're advocating for CARES funding for hospitality, tourism industries that are local, does that also encompass those restaurants and hospitality industries that are inside the airports that probably are seeing a more significant drop than any hospitality that's on Main Street?
We're advocating for all of the hospitality industry and the CVB specifically. A lot of those were eligible for benefits within the CARES package and have been able to retain some of their business at some level, even if it has been significantly compromised. We're advocating for the CVBs to be able to receive some sort of funding assistance that will help us help everyone.
Okay.
We market and promote everyone. Our airport is a significant product in what we do that moves people to our destination. And if you flew in, chances are you don't own a house here, you know, our locals do use it. But if you're visiting, you're staying in a hotel. You're probably staying for more than one night. You're staying for an extended stay because you want to make the best out of your ticket here.
Right.
If you're a meeting attendee, you're probably going to stay a couple extra days if your boss bought you a plane ticket here. So we want to help take care of everyone that touches our industry, not just, you know, the hotels or the restaurants or the bars or any of those. Everyone is in it together. And together we have our product.
Well, that's just one thing I wanted to kind of raise attention to, and specifically to this committee, that may be a forgotten industry as we move forward that we're not looking at. We're looking at the airline and the loss, but there are the support industries that are directly tied to that. And we have hospitality groups that run support services within the airlines, and they are taking a significant hit. So we really need to pay attention, because when our airlines do resume to normal air flight, we want to make sure that those shops that we all enjoy while we are delayed or we wait are still standing. And I think we have a significant crisis on our hands there, that we could lose some of that industry. So I just wanted to see if that fell in your hospitality umbrella.
Yeah, anything that touches the visitor would be important to us.
Thank you. Little piece of advice. Even though it's 100 degrees outside, wear a jacket when you come here, because you're going to freeze to death in here. I think they're trying to kill the COVID-19 with the frostbite. So thank you, Ms. Knight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ms. Spencer, or Ms. Allen,
Yes.
if you'll come introduce yourself. They don't have a clue who you are after I've messed your name up, so please.
Okay.
Tell us who
Hi,
you are.
I'm Michelle Allen, and I am with the Somerset-Pulaski County Convention and Visitors Bureau, now known as the capital of Lake Cumberland. We encompass about 5 different counties that surround Lake Cumberland. I'm going to tell you just a little bit of a different story, kind of the same but different. When she's talking their budget's in the millions, mine is $390,000. So when I talk smaller numbers, you know it's still hitting us just as hard as anybody else. Our usual economic impact for just Pulaski alone for tourism dollars is $119 million. It's about $220 million for the entire region. We have, of course, been significantly hit by the COVID. What we also need to remember is when we're up here speaking to you is before COVID even hit, we've always been yelling to make sure that you knew that tourism was a viable industry, that the state of Kentucky knew that it was a viable industry. And now, if any other time, is the time to jump on this and make sure that we do recover, but that we go a little bit further than what we're usually used to doing. We get about 4 million visitors a year. Gatlinburg, the city of Gatlinburg, not Sevierville, gets about 11 million. The city of Gatlinburg also has a higher budget than the entire state of Kentucky. I just wanted to put that in your ear so you know that as well. We are, of course, just like Lexington and most smaller CVBs as well, we are funded through a transient tax. So that's 3% that I specifically get, and that is my total funding. None from the county, none from the city, specifically just from hotels, VRBOs, cabins, and cottages. Our occupancy rate this year in April was 11%. And that 11% came from a hotel that hosts the railroad workers. So thankfully for them, we were getting a little bit of income for that. To compare last year's Memorial Day, of course, we're outdoor recreation. I am seasonal. So summertime is the time that we're really bringing in the folks to our area. Last year, we had a 94% occupancy rate for Memorial Day weekend. This year, it was 45%. Now, Visit Lex would love to have that 45, but that's a huge difference from last year to this year for our smaller communities. So they were still coming, but nowhere near what we're used to. So our loss from March to May was $55,000, just specifically in our office. And like I said, they've got several employees, we have 3. And most in our area, Eastern Kentucky, Southern Kentucky, we don't have large CVBs. Some don't even have a tourism office. Sometimes it just goes through the judge's office. So I'm lucky enough to have 3 employees. So we lost $55,000 just in 3 months. Projected loss through August is $110,000. And let me reiterate, my budget's $390,000 for the entire fiscal year. So this year, we are cutting our advertising to $52,000, which last year was $102,000. And many of you sitting here know how much marketing costs because you've had to market yourselves to be in these seats that you're sitting in. So that is one of the biggest devastating things to happen to our office, to the entire state of Kentucky. When we're talking about, Representative Clark, you had mentioned wondering how we are ensuring our visitors when they're coming to us. Several of us, if you go to our websites, if you see some smaller commercials or listening to the radio, we started off with, we're not ready just yet, or we're getting ready, or we will be prepared when the time is right. We were not screaming, come to us now. We were not saying, hey, visit us at this time. We were canceling things, but we were also saying, but we're looking positive, we're still staying positive. That's what we need to continue to do. But with our budgets being sliced like they are, it's going to be harder to do that. We are the gateway to our communities, into our economic development, to be able to grow into our communities. Our offices are the ones, when we are talking about advertising and marketing, we're the ones that are representing those smaller places that don't have the funds to be able to do so. So if you do have a mom and pop, a small business owner that doesn't have the money to do so, they come to us, they look for us. We go to boat shows, we do all types of different things. A lot of that's going to be slashed. So if they don't know about us, if we don't have the funding to be able to provide those services for them, we're all going to be stuck with this COVID-19 and with trying to develop our economy. Now, I will say, where I am fortunate in our area is for the lake. We are very fortunate for our outdoor recreation. I will say in the past, our state has also been known as the Golden Triangle, Lexington, Louisville, and Northern Kentucky when it came to advertising. When you saw something that was advertised, whether it was a billboard or a commercial, that's basically who they were talking about. So smaller areas were screaming, hey, we're not a part of the Golden Triangle, look at us, we've got things, we've got the outdoor recreation, and now's the time to make sure that we are noticed as well. One of the things I also want you to realize is we lost about $8 million in festivals and conferences. Our Center for Rural Development is our only conference area in the 5-county area that can host several people. They are missing out on 55 different events this summer. So we are also losing our Master Musicians Festival. The important thing about the Master Musicians Festival, just as an example, is not only are we losing ticket sales, hotel sales, VRBO sales, gas station, restaurants, the entrepreneur that sells the t-shirts and creates the t-shirts, they're losing out. Danny Davis from Monticello, Kentucky, who owns Audio Video, who sets up the stages and provides the sound system, is losing out. Rick Girdler, Senator Rick Girdler, who might pay for the but take care of the liability insurance for the festival, is going to be missing out. So $1 travels 7 different times in your community from tourism. 7 different times in your community. So it's going from one thing to the other, whether it's indirect or direct spending. We are missing out on those funds, but we need those funds not only to keep our offices going, but to give a little faith back into our communities that we're excited, that we're here to help you. If you can't be helped, if you don't know how to market yourself, that's what we're here to do, and to help these folks to be able to let them know to come to Lake Cumberland, let them know to come to Southern Eastern Kentucky, but at the same time that we're doing it right and that we're going to be safe and that we want you to come year after year.
Thank you, Michelle. Tell Danny Davis to call Max Wise. That's his senator, and he can take care of that problem for him.
Okay, I'll tell you that.
You did very good. Are there any questions? Senator Wise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not so much a question, but just a personal thank you. I was also happy to see the pressure that was put on the administration to open up Lake Cumberland with State Park with the resort. I know from my side of the lake, I can't speak for the chairman, but how much it is beneficial to Russell, Adair, Cumberland, Clinton, Wayne, you name it, and even into the chairman's district up there, that we got common sense to open that up, and that we are seeing some fruits that have came from that, because like you mentioned, the small businesses and that area down there is vital for outdoor tourism. So thank you for what you're doing.
Absolutely. And it came from, as we talk about a region, we're not just working as ourselves, that that's why Chris Girdler, who is our SPEDA president, he said, let's make us capital of Lake Cumberland, but the capital helps everybody else. We are the largest community, so we wrote letters. We got on Facebook. We got a little loud to make sure that happened because it was vital, not just for Russell and Wayne, but for Pulaski and Somerset as well, because people are looking for that area. They drive through us, they fill up with gas, they eat with us, but that part of the lake is beautiful, and we love it too.
Just to tell you a little bit about the traffic flow, we even put, with the help of Senator McConnell and Representative Harold Rogers, giving us $25 million to make 461 4-lane that comes in from I-75 that goes
Straight to 'em.
to them and through us. So it's a very vital part.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The lines this weekend, several pictures on social media where they were lined up, and I just wanted to go out there and say, it's coming, it'll be here soon.
Yes, Representative Brenham.
Thank you. Not so much a question, but just also a comment. Thank you. Thank you for this presentation and for the efforts, because you highlight when we take precautions, we follow guidelines, and we do things the correct way, we can open up and enjoy our state and set a good reputation where people want to return. It is a different way of doing business now. As I mentioned, I'd been Director of Development for the Paramount Arts Center, and this past weekend, all of our normal activities in our community had been canceled because of the inability to gather safely in large groups. But the theater thought outside the box, and we did a drive-in concert. They worked in coordination with my office and through the administration for recommended guidelines, how to do it healthy and safe. And we had a wonderful concert with Jamie Johnson. Sorry y'all missed it. He was phenomenal. But everyone pulled in their cars, had designated spaces. So it's a different form of entertainment. We worked with our Boyd County Tourism that was a part of structuring that. So, as we move forward, I think if all of our communities and our organizations and our tourism groups work to promote that you can visit us and remain healthy with your family, I think we will see a new growth. It may not be what we've experienced currently. We may be a few years getting back to our current, that we all have known as tourism, but we have other opportunities now to grow some of our smaller, not as well recognized communities during this time period.
Absolutely.
And then maybe as our large communities come back, us smaller communities will still be remembered for our
And we have to
specialties.
remember outdoor recreation is what everybody's screaming is the healthy way to travel. And southern eastern Kentucky is known for our outdoor recreation, whether it's hiking,
Yes.
canoeing, coming to the lake. So now is the time for our state to really grasp on to that opportunity
Right.
in our areas to be able to market and advertise those things.
Yes. We've-
Because they have to travel through somewhere to get to us, right?
That's what I
That's
said.
right.
We had, out-of-town visitors that came from different states to come to this drive-in concert, because we have big open land in eastern Kentucky. So we were able to, like you said, set up the stage. Being past employee of the theater, I worked on the programming committee, so I understand everything you're saying, how this affects the stagehands. Everyone, when a show gets canceled, our entire theater schedule for 2020 was canceled. So it's really nice to see going outside the box and do this drive-in theater that was a benefit for the tourism group, benefit for the theater, and for the community. But it did bring in travelers who stopped and got gas, bought food, stayed at some of the local hotels for the night. So, that's a concept I'm going to throw out there. We've already been the guinea pig for it in Boyd County, so if any of our other smaller rural counties want to look at that, our citizens are already asking for follow-up outdoor driving concerts. It was really well received.
That's exciting to hear.
Thanks.
Representative Weber.
Ms. Allen, thank you, first of all, for coming and testifying before us today. I've been to Lake Cumberland a few times. It's a beautiful area. I love it. I've got a question for you, just to kind of give me a comparison with some raw numbers. So in 2019, the summer, because you said you're very seasonal in your area. So 2019, without COVID, what was your attendance or folks coming to Lake Cumberland? And then can you give me a number for 2020, how that might compare, so what we're looking at?
The most comparison I can get, because we do have a lot of drive-in and drive-home folks, and most of our CBBs just calculate mostly on people staying the night in hotels and VRBOs. To calculate that, 94% stayed in hotels and stayed in our VRBOs, and 45 for this year. That's talking about, we usually get, I mentioned 4 million visitors coming, and that's the region. That's not just Pulaski. Pulaski gets about 2.5 million of those, and that's seasonal, as you just mentioned. So I would say where we're used to getting that 2.5, I don't even know that we'll even come close to hitting that million. But I am excited. People are literally calling every day, asking, where can I stay? Where can I come? Who is open? Because I'm not going to Florida and I've heard about Lake Cumberland, or I've been to Lake Cumberland before and I'm not going to Florida. This is our time to really grasp these folks and get those folks here instead of them traveling down that I-75 corridor.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I had apparently missed that number, that 4 million number, so that's helpful. And I'll just say this, I'm on my 8th year here. And you mentioned earlier individual cities in other states, like Gatlinburg, how much they spend versus what Kentucky spends on tourism. I think to have 4 million folks visit the Pulaski, Russell County area is tremendous. I didn't know that. And I believe that if we invest in tourism properly in this state, that can be one source of revenue for the Commonwealth that can help us long term. But it requires money to make that investment. And but I know the more you invest, the more you let people know in other states the jewels that you've got here, they're going to come. And I think that's one thing we need to when we get through this and however we figure that out, we really need to up our investment in tourism in this state to let other folks know about Lake Cumberland, in my area, to let them know about Bernheim, Jim Beam, all of these locations that bring in tens of thousands of people each year. And I think that's an untapped source that we need to look at. So.
And that's what I said earlier, is now is the time to grab on that opportunity where more people are looking at us, because we are just a day's drive for most of the United States. People can get to us so easily. They don't have to fly to us. They can drive to us. They can make it a long weekend instead of a week's long. They can come back 2 or 3 times instead of just being able to go on vacation one time with for the entire state of Kentucky.
Thank you for being with us today.
Sure, thank you.
Any other questions? Any questions out there in La La Land? Just out of curiosity, I hear the term, we're in this together. And I've never talked to anybody in the administration about tourism in Pulaski County or any other area about mine. Has the administration reached out to either of you to find out your problems and what you can do or what you can't do?
Yes, I mean, we've got Mike Manjit with yes, absolutely. We've had webinars with the state to talk about the damage, talk about our numbers, who's doing what, how can we share, maybe if somebody's doing this here, maybe somebody can do that there, absolutely. What I do want to reiterate, as I said before, is Kentucky is behind when it comes to marketing what we have, not because of COVID. We have been behind several states for many, many years, and this is our opportunity to put some funding toward tourism and marketing and advertising and helping our small businesses, helping us CVBs, as we said, our marketing dollars are being sliced in half, so I can't help Pulaski County anymore. Luckily, we've got a judge and a mayor in Somerset, Pulaski County, that feels the importance, but that's not happening all across the state. So it's very important that we start to look at this as a bigger picture, as Representative Weber had mentioned, that not just because of COVID, but because we've been behind before in the past.
I know that just from, it's kind of stickler for me, as the state senator from Pulaski and got Ball and Lincoln, I've never been talked to, never been asked. And I've talked to other senators and other representatives, and we've never been asked. You seems like you would break it down, instead of the whole state, you would kind of want to include some other people in it. So, and it's just kind of a stickler for me, and I was just curious.
Yep.
And I'm glad to hear that they are. I
Yeah,
really
well,
am.
I'm sad that what you just said too. So that's kind of what leads to what our big problem has been in the past, is why this has kind of happened
Yeah.
this way in the first place. So yes, we've been spoken to, we've had webinars. We've got a great state association, Kentucky Tourism Industry Association, that really helps us. Of course, it's not funded through, it's a membership organization that has really stayed on top of things. So we're really grateful for the help they've offered. It's just not the funding, just like everybody else needs, that they can provide.
All right. Thank you, Michelle, and
Thank
thank you,
you.
Ms. Knight. Y'all did a great job. We
you.
appreciate that. Next meeting, I think. Is there another meeting in June? August. Well, not June, August, yeah. We're going to wait till next June to meet with you all. Our budget won't allow us to meet any sooner. I guess next meeting we'll just tell you, email you. Any other questions of the chairman or any of the members? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, and we'll get with you and let you know when we're going to have this again. It's later in August.
August 19th.
All right, August 19th, we're going to meet again. Motion to adjourn. We adjourn.